The more you familiarize yourself with this still point, or twilight zone, the more you will recognize its occurrence as you're falling asleep at bedtime, which again is usually the easiest time for most people to project. The reason most do not achieve astral projection during meditation is because they are not as relaxed as when they enter the sleep state. But I think it's important to familiarize yourself with reaching as close to the still point as possible during meditation, so you will not sleep through it when it happens at bedtime. After practicing with meditation for several days to weeks, your awareness will be so much more in tune with the outer edges of the twilight zone that you will actually recognize it while you are drifting off to sleep, and can retain/regain awareness as you travel through it. Now let's talk a little about recognizing the still point and some tips for using this point as a way to launch into an out-of-body experience. The techniques in the remainder of this article can be used during meditation or when you are falling asleep. The still point. The still point feels extremely misty and somewhat dreamlike, for lack of better words to describe it. You are not usually dreaming during it because you are not fully asleep, but rather you are losing yourself in it, similar to what happens during non-lucid dreams, yet there is no dream sequence unfolding. You also are aware, but at the same time you aren't all that aware either. You're pretty much straddling the fence between waking consciousness and the dream world. I know it sounds very cryptic, but it's one of those things that doesn't really translate well into words. The best advice I can give is try it. Once you have entered that state and retain consciousness during it, there's no mistaking it for anything else. Feeling for your awareness in the still point. As you fumble around for some semblance of awareness in this dreamlike environment, minus the dreamscape, you have to be somewhat careful not to startle yourself so that you don't pull out of the still point. I believe there are varying degrees in the twilight zone that you can practice your astral projection from. While you reach for awareness, you may slightly disturb the still point, but if you are careful in your approach, you can still remain in the moment without destroying the continuity of the experience. It's similar to feeling your way around an unfamiliar, unlit room late at night. You're cruising along and all of a sudden you stub your toe on a piece of furniture that you didn't realize was there. Do your best to find yourself and your way around without stubbing your toe. Once you have done this, you are in prime territory for working on having a conscious OBE, since your physical body is essentially asleep. Robert Peterson, the author of Out-of-Body Experiences, How to Have Them and What to Expect, describes this point as analogous to a fishing cork floating on the water. As you start to drift off and your cork goes below the surface, you want to be careful not to jerk the line too hard or you'll miss the fish. When you reach this stage, you have accomplished the goal of mind awake, body asleep. Using visualization. This is now the time that I personally begin to use visualization techniques to aid in my projection. One of my favorites is to envision myself on a roller coaster. I do my best to feel each and every turn, drop, and loop. This visualization creates the sensation of motion, and from our current perspective in the still point, we pretty much have no body capable of detecting physical motion, since it's technically asleep. Though you're still loosely connected to your physical body, you're sending the message that you wish to experience these sensations. The more you can feel these sensations and really feel what it feels like to be on a ride or experiencing motion, then the more momentum you will build up in detaching fully from the body. It's around this time I will also try and locate a way in which to slightly move my eyes, with my eyelids still closed. I say try because depending on how deep into the still point I am, this can be fairly impossible to accomplish. When I can locate a means for doing this, I usually roll them somewhat cross-eyed and up, as if I'm trying to point them at mid-eyebrow level. I know this sounds really strange, but this too creates an inner feeling of motion for me. Many people believe this action stimulates the third eye location, which is a chakra point found in Eastern cultures. I'm not sure if it's causing stimulation to this region, but it does create a sense of inner motion that's important for achieving full detachment from the physical. I usually will repeat the eye roll a few times as I continue feeling the sensations of my roller coaster ride. There are many other techniques that other people use, such as the rollout and the wire. I believe the rollout was started by Robert Monroe. I spoke about Robert Monroe in podcast number 2, and he is the author of the Journeys trilogy, Journeys Out of the Body, Far Journeys, and Ultimate Journey. The rollout essentially uses a rolling motion that can be used when you are in the still point. You're not literally rolling, of course, you are just mimicking the sensation. Now, the method I call the wire, which is probably not its original name, is actually credited to Robert Peterson. It involves the visualization of a wire or string that's attached to a point somewhere near your forehead, once again, possibly in the third eye point. Now, this wire or string is intended to have a sensation associated with it of pulling you from your body. The feeling of motion most of the time, in whichever one of these techniques you utilize, is vital to engaging a conscious projection. Try some of your own visualization methods that feel right for you and which will also create a sense of this motion. Up next, we have sensations and symptoms. If you are already somewhat familiar with out-of-body experiences and astral projection, or have read my blog posts discussing my experiences, then you are aware that many strange symptoms and sensations will accompany this shift in your consciousness. As you start to apply some of the techniques mentioned above while you are in the still point, then you will begin to notice accompanying sensations like your ears ringing and roaring, your entire body vibrating and shaking, cold blasts of air or breaths being blown onto key points of your skin, voices saying your name, and many more. In fact, these sensations can even happen prior to your visualization. In the world of astral projection, there are similarities amongst every experience, but none are usually exactly identical. In fact, to this day, I can say I don't think that every single one of my experiences has been exactly the same. Each one has had specific, unique circumstances or otherwise things happening out of order. They never exactly follow a chronological sequence. It's important that you allow these symptoms to play out, however. They are fleeting and are indicators that you have basically initiated the countdown sequence to a full astral projection. You're probably wondering what is causing all of those symptoms, all of those sensations. It's an excellent question. To explore it fully could be an entire article in and of itself.